as a child. Greetings, Slimesters, and welcome to another Nightmares as a Child, where we're going to tell you more spine-tingling tales from the 90s. I'm your Slimerific host, Brett, and today we're going to be covering a character from Rocko's Modern Life. We're going to be going deep into an episode that traumatized me as a kid, and you'll see why in a moment. It actually starts with an episode called To Heck and Back from Season 1. And it was an episode that I first watched in 1993 when I was about 5 years old. And, you know, that was around my phase of my life where I had a very overactive imagination. So things would really get in there easily and distort and freak me out. And when I watched this episode first, I just remember being very unsettled by how it was progressing. It starts off with a chicken named Karen getting a job interview. And then she's immediately processed into, rotisserie chicken to be sent to Choky Chicken restaurant. And then Heffer ends up eating her, ironically, and dying from choking on the chicken bone that he scarfed down. And when that happened, I was already freaking out because we got this lovable character who just passed away in front of everyone at the restaurant, and Rocko's trying to save him, but he can't. And we see where Heffer ends up, which turns out to be heck, a friendly community, as they would say on the signpost in the episode. And he's greeted by this very looming, menacing character, all in a black robe. He's like a tall guy in a black robe with this strange looking hood on his head. And he goes by Peaches. He's pretty threatening. I think he is. I appreciate the character now for mixing a little bit of silly and a little bit of seriousness. Especially more so in the follow-up episode, Heff in a Handbasket, where Heffer goes back to Heck to compete on a game show so that Peaches can steal his soul and give it to his master. But that's another story for another time. We're talking about this particular episode and how it affected me. So, despite all the crazy things that happened so far and how Peaches essentially shows Heffer why he's a glutton, he deserves to be in heck for all eternity, Rocko helps, he finds a way to save him and get him out, despite the fact that he falls inside of him and is going to be digested in one of his 4 cow stomachs. He's watching this on the TV with Peaches next to him of a this is your life moment. Turns out Peaches he removes his hood to freak Heffer out, and it shows this fleshy colored udder type head that's all bumpy, and he's got these sawtooth teeth and these yellow eyes, and he starts laughing maniacally and starts spinning his head like crazy, squirting milk out of it. And then Heffer's freaking out and I'm freaking out of what I'm seeing on the TV, because it's not like anything else I've seen in a Nicktoon so far, at least at that time. It just freaks me out to think about it. We find out that was just a nightmare that Heffer had on TV, and everything looks fine. He's back in his house and he goes to see, the sun shining day outside his window. But just when you think it's safe to, let your guard down as a viewer, especially if you're a young kid in the 90s watching this, his house reveals itself to be Peaches' head. And of course he starts maniacally laughing again and squirting the milk out. And the other houses next to him on other hills do it too. And I'm just what the heck is going on here? This belongs in Ren and Stimpy, not Rocko. But Rocko is twisted in its own way. And that really left an impression on me more than anything. I would say from Rocko, there's some pretty crazy twisted moments, when Ed's hallucinating in Cabin Fever, or when Bed Beakhead kills Ed in the Ed is Dead thriller. But this one really lingered with me purely due to the fact of the imagery and Peaches' voice that matched it. It was low, gravelly, booming, and threatening, all that stuff. And I just remember being really shook by it. That night, I had a nightmare that was based on it. And I just remember going down the stairs around 12:30ish at night, going into the kitchen, open up the door, getting a few pieces of salami, from lunch meat to just pop into my mouth to satiate my stomach, because I was a little bit hungry back then. And I need something to take my mind off of what I saw earlier. And You wouldn't believe this, but when I closed the door, Peaches was standing right there next to me in his black robe and his hood, and he's like,
"You shouldn't be eating this meat at this hour."
Scolding me kind of like he was scolding Heffer in the episode. And I was just like, "Wah! What are you doing here?" And I just immediately booked it straight back up the stairs, slammed the door shut, hid under my covers, and just prayed that, the night would be over as fast as possible. And that really, oh boy, that left an impression on me, to the point where I was at school the next day, just kind of like staring blankly at my lunch tray and full of fish sticks, and my milk was on the side. And every time I like glanced at my milk on the corner, I was just thinking of that crazy head that reminded me of like Pinhead from Hellraiser, or like Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, just like attacking people in their dreams, just going crazy with that milk squirting and the spinning head and the sawtooth teeth and all that. Obviously, I haven't seen movies like Hellraiser and Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 5 back then, but as I got later in life, I made the connections with Peaches because of how striking it was to me to see him like that. I didn't have nightmares of him too often growing up. It was very infrequent, like maybe a couple times a year, but every time he would show up in the dead of night, it is usually when I would go to the fridge to get like something to eat or drink, just so that I can get to sleep, because I had trouble sleeping. And I've had a history of insomnia growing up, where I like need to do something to take my mind off of whatever was keeping me awake that I couldn't figure out. Whether it was like at the fridge, or he was like standing there when I was sleeping in my bunk bed, just pointing at me and scolding me like, "You shouldn't be eating at this hour." It just, I had to pull up the covers and not think about it. Couldn't watch that episode of Rocko for a while, just because it made me feel uncomfortable. But I did finally get over it. I did confront my fears, and that was a few years later when I was older. I was about like junior high at the time, so like preteen, teenager, around 14. And I just remember having one more nightmare to kind of act as closure for me, when I watched To Heck and Back again, and also Heff in a Handbasket, which was like the follow-up to Heck and Back, but a more comedic tone, with like Heffer going back to Heck and doing this game show thing. But that's a story for another day. The point being is that when I dreamed that final dream, I was out in my backyard. It was like the midnight moon was shining down on me. There's like a slight breeze that was howling all around me. Stars were clear in the sky. I remember it very vividly. And I was just staring at the back of my house for some reason. And Peaches was just like slowly walking towards me in his terrifyingly black robe that seemed more terrifying in the darkness with the moonlight shining on him. And as he was coming towards me, the house took its visage off and showed that like creepy utter head just squirting milk and like smiling like this with the saw teeth and the red eyes with the beady red irises. And all I could just think about is, I need to end this somehow. I need to just make it go away. And so for whatever reason, all I can think about is just confront fear with love, confront it head on and see what happens, no matter what. And I just remember running straight towards him as he was walking towards me at his like steady pace, and just like bear hugging him as much as I possibly could. Like I squeezed him super tight, like he was about to pop. And sure enough, boop, his head rolled right off, with the hood still on it, so it didn't freak me out too much. And then I just looked to my side and saw it lying there, in the hood. And what rolled out was a red dodgeball. It wasn't his creepy utter head. And when I looked back, straight at the house, I just saw the robe, fall to the ground where the grass was, and just kind of sink beneath it and disappear completely. And then when I saw the ball next to me, it just was an ordinary ball. I guess fear really does, go away when you approach it with like some sort of positive feeling, or like courage or kindness or love because that was an example of a nightmare that I conquered and it never came back again. And I'm really thankful for that, because now I can enjoy Rocko and even some of the more darker, twisted episodes without it really phasing me at night. So that's my story of my nightmares as a child with Peaches. That creepy looking guy who hangs around Heck from time to time and tries to pull characters like Heffer down to it. What about you guys? Are you scared of that episode at all? Is there like another Rocko episode or moment, or maybe even another Nicktoon that you were afraid of as a child? Maybe even another cartoon from another channel in the 90s? Let me know at splatattack2021@gmail.com. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear what scares you as much as what scared me, so that we can have this conversation and interact more and really just find comfort in sharing these stories together through this channel. So, let me know via email, splatattack2021@gmail.com. DM me on Instagram, Splatattack Podcast. Love to hear from you, and I'll share your story in a future Nightmares as a Child episode. You could even record a video of yourself doing it, and we'll edit it together. And see what comes of it. Until then, I will see you next time for a more spine-tingling episode. But first, I have to put out this fire behind me because it's getting pretty hot in here. I don't think I can really handle the heat much longer. So maybe Peaches over there can help me, either put out this fire or just get back to the surface, because I don't want to be in Heck anymore. I told my story. Spot you later, guys.
You will watch it in reruns again and again for all eternity! Rocko!